What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode, Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. This is my first episode back as a married man. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that. So I got my ring on, ready to rock. Doesn't feel too different, but here I am. So I got two awesome guests on the show today, Billy and Tony. So, gentlemen, thank you. Tony, how are you doing today? If you could introduce yourself, because this is the first time you're on COJAC. So I don't know if the guests know who you are, all those good things.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. I'm really glad you asked me on, and congratulations on your marriage. I remember something that the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said. He said, "The day after a man is married, he's 7 years older."
Ooh.
Don't know why. It it advances your maturity. I think it's a good thing. But I'm the host of the Arterburn radio transmission, and I'm the co-host of a show called America Unplugged over on rockfin.com and anywhere podcasts are found with the great Billy Ray Valentine and the legendary Don Jeffries, americaunplugged.com. I'm the owner of Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Exchange. I've got a bunch of things going on, but
I love it, dude.
happy to be here.
And you got I got two guys with amazing radio voices. So the other guy, I'll say the second, or I'll say you're tied. The tide of the best radio voice, Billy the Kid. What's going on, dude? Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me as usual. Congratulations on getting married. And much like Tony says, Tony and I have been married for quite some time. It's like dog years. Like every year is 7 years. Just letting you know. Okay, so expect some grays very soon, the whole deal. Make sure you call me if you need me. It's all good. Nah, man, I'm fucking with you. Congratulations, buddy. Congratulations.
Thank you, dude. Thank you. Well, so I had a topic before we just went live. I had a topic. I'm going to get to that, but Tony brought up a great point. We have to talk about the anniversary of the moon landing. So I'm going to guess where your camp you guys fall in, but I'll start with you, Tony. What is your take on the moon landing, or even can we get to outer space, dude? I'd be interested in your take on both those things.
Well, I believe we can get to outer space.
Okay.
And I just believe that. I don't know it because I've never done it. I just believe it, right? I have a problem with the moon landing, and I didn't used to. I'm an agnostic.
Okay.
I mean, you talk to somebody like Don Jeffries, we didn't go.
Right.
It's just,
yes.
I mean, you interview Bart Sabrell, we didn't go. I've talked to and spent time with Apollo astronauts, and I had that opportunity because I was an opponent of Congressman Ralph Hall. He was the last World War II veteran in Congress, and I ran against him. And then at the end of his race, he got into a runoff, and he asked me to help him. So I became his Twitter. I mean, I'd known him since he was a congressman when I was a little boy, like just born. I mean, he was my congressman in North Texas. So he was on the science committee. Buzz Aldrin had a room at his house. So, we would talk about history and, for hours. But then I got to meet like Gene Cernan, the last man who walked on the moon. I spent an afternoon with him. I flew around with another admiral. It was on Apollo, I forget, like 13 or something. No, it was Apollo 14, something like that. And, I took it for granted that we went. And as you grow a little bit more mature, you read more. And I'd read tons of court historian books. Like I'd read a lot of approved history.
Okay, right.
I wasn't just coming from zero. Just a lot of approved history. And then you realize that something's wrong. If you spend enough years reading history, you realize, if you're honest with yourself, that this doesn't make any sense. Because basically, history without conspiracy is just chaos, and it's silly. It makes no sense. When you take conspiracy and you lap it over history, then you've got the keystone. Then you've got what you need, right, to make things make sense. So I guess I have questions. I'm open to it. Like if somebody said, I have proof we didn't go, I could believe that. The problem with it is, Jack, is that if we didn't go, it's not only a question of we faked the moon landing. It's a question of we faked reality. Like we faked governments. We faked intelligence communities. We faked wars. We faked everything. And I'm open to that. But you got to remember, like you're talking about, was the Cold War real? Mm-hmm. Was the Soviet Union real? Was Sputnik real? So then, see, it starts to take apart everything. So when you embrace that, you have to be ready to destroy all things, like all of your perceptions, all of your, your sacred cows, whatever. It has to go. It has to be on the chopping block, because again, if we didn't land on the moon, we didn't go in 1969. Why didn't the Soviets bring that up? Why do we have another, 25 years of Cold War? How did that happen? Why wouldn't they just say you didn't go? Why didn't this expose us? Why all the death and the billions and all, all the Cold War tensions? It doesn't make any sense. So I would say I'm open to the suggestion, but I'm agnostic now. I'm not a cheerleader for it, because I brought this up, right? We're in the back office talking about, show notes and things. And
yeah,
I bring this up. Why this should be a national holiday? Should be like, everybody celebrate. We went to the moon. It's like, when I was a kid, you just took it for granted. Look, we watch Dumb and Dumber, and he goes up and reads the newspaper article. It's, we landed on the moon, and it was a big thing. And you think about that now and how everything seems so stupid. Like people seem stupid. Joe Biden is shaking hands with nobody. We had a big orange idiot lock us down for the last year, and then people fought over him and everything at the end of the year. We live in clown times, and it's easier to perceive now that everything's fake. So I get it, but if you ever spent time with like real, like Cold Warrior Americans, like smart people, like people that built this, because we're on a plane of existence that's built by people that were pretty amazing from all walks of life. And then you look around today and you go, oh shit. So
definitely not the same.
It's not the same. So I'm willing to accept. It's like, in the truth community, a lot of people think nuclear weapons aren't real. And I go, okay, I've never seen one, but my grandfather did. As a matter of fact, he was part of the hydrogen bomb experiments, and I've got his Tripoli sword, his Marine Corps sword, on my wall here, and his name plate here on. He was a lieutenant, and he was a vice president of Texas Instruments in the weapons division, which you need to stop secret clearance for.
Right.
He used to tell me about weapons systems when I was a little kid, and they had to take his leg off at the hip because his bone cancer. He had several different. He was a tough guy. I could do like, calculus on a legal pad. It's just amazing. Like they had this mind, because that was what they were, Cold Warriors, and he would talk about the Soviet Union. And I just think about, where do those guys go? And at the same time, I know that he was like, he wrote me letters when I was in Afghanistan. He described the bombs, the hydrogen bombs. One of them was Diablo. You know what that means, right? And so again, he would tell stories about like they would go detonate a bomb, and they didn't have any protective gear. So they tell them they tell them to put their arms over their eyes.
That'll work.
And he said when they detonate the bomb, that the flash would X-ray his bone. So I believe they're real.
Yeah.
Interesting, dude.
Billy always has something better to say than me.
No, I can't wait I want Billy's take, but I'm very surprised. But go ahead, Billy. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm a lot in line with Tony on this. I think we made it to the moon.
Wow.
Right. I think we made it to the moon, but I think, and a lot of this is an original thought. It's an original thought to me, but I wasn't the first one to come up with it. Right. Like,
yeah,
this is a theory that's gone around, that whatever we were shown wasn't what actually happened. And I think I subscribe to that, and I could change my mind tomorrow about this, given new evidence, right? I think we made it to the moon, and maybe we saw something up there we weren't supposed to see because we've never been back. I don't know. I know what we were shown. There's a lot of questions around it. I've had people on my show that have, that are experts on taking this stuff apart. I actually just spoke to Paul on the plane last week, and I hadn't spoken to him in about a year. And he was responsible for a couple of documentaries that you can find on YouTube. He's not active anymore, but you can find them on YouTube about the moon landing, and they take it apart with another gentleman who was on my show, who I can't remember his name for the life of me. Paul is a flat earther.
Okay.
Right? And I am friends with plenty of flat earthers. On my desk, if I ever get a real setup like Tony has, I want to display my flat earth hot sauce that I was given. I'm not even kidding. David Weiss. He gave it to me.
Wow.
He came to, I put on an event here in New York in 2019 called Shoot the Moon, with Crow 777 and Jason Lindgren and John Brissom, the Patriot Street Fighter. He wasn't called that then. I would have loved to have actually said that in front of tons of people. And Wayne McCroy, and David Weiss came out as part of he's just there. I'm like, oh, there's David Weiss. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Buff dude.
Is he?
Yeah. Anyway,
No
he was
way.
super cool. He comes up to me, he gives me this little bag, and he's like, here, this is for you. He put a whole little thing together for me. I'm like, this is so dope. And one of them was flat earth hot sauce. And he's like, you need to taste that. I'm like, no, I'm not tasting it. And he's like, this is why I'm giving it to you. I'm like, no. I'm not opening this. You can give me another one if you want, and I will taste that one. But this one will remain closed for the remainder of my life, and it'll be there, and it's flat earth hot sauce. But anyway, straying from the point. A lot of these people don't believe that we ever made it there. Listen, I'm open to it. I am even open to the earth being flat. I was thinking about it today. Okay. And I forgot about the moon landing. Otherwise, I probably would have done a fringe on this. I forgot that today was the anniversary. Thank you for bringing it up. But I was thinking about flat earth and how many smart people from our past subscribe to the idea. And I'm like, these people were far from dumb, and they had incredible knowledge of the stars and the planets and the way everything worked together. And we now can't begin to understand how they understood that with their quote unquote primitive technology. And a lot of them subscribed to a flat earth. Not only that, the Bible can be argued as a flat earth text. All right, sure, people will go back and forth about the interpretation, but there are plenty of people that will go there. As Zen Garcia will argue it to the end of time. Rob Skiba, before he passed away, God bless him, I never got to meet him. He was another one, a flat earth text, and there were a few others anyway. So I don't negate it. I don't rule it out. We really don't know what's going on. I believe, much like Tony said, I believe the earth to be a sphere. I believe that we made it to the moon.
Wow.
I don't believe that the footage that we were shown was the actual footage. There's a lot of and everybody knows the highlights, right? That the flag was waving, the shadows, all of this stuff, right? The guy that I had on with Paul on the plane, and I'm sorry I can't think of the name, put forth the idea that all of that was filmed in Arizona. That the moon landing footage was filmed in Arizona in a desert where they used to practice what they would do if they got on the moon. He says, according to him, that you can see debris on the floor, like soda cans, like Pepsi cans or whatever. I'll get the name before the end of the broadcast, just so people have some context. Yeah. But he makes that argument that there are so many anomalies, and that it can't be the moon, right? And there's also the Stanley Kubrick argument, which I find fascinating. Yeah. I love that, that it was the set for 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? And they have the NASA gave Stanley Kubrick a telescope, as a gift, and his daughter has it now with a note written to him. Hey, thank you for faking the moon landing. Not that. That's not what they said. No. But something to that, just saying thank you or whatever. And this was a thing. There was a connection there. And if you look at a Space Odyssey, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and you look at the actual moon footage, it looks better. It's like, whoa, the bottom line is 99.9, probably more than that, of the people of Earth have never been to outer space, right? So we only have the testimony of a select few people that have been up there, and we can choose to believe them or not. And there's a lot of there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that puts what they're saying in doubt. But then I talk to somebody like Tony. Tony's my friend. I trust Tony, and Tony tells me that he's spoken to these people, and I have no reason to not believe him. So what do I say to that? Tony, you're a liar. You know, what do I say to that? You know, Buzz Aldrin, you know, he's gone around, and of course, he's older now. He's still alive, right? Buzz is still alive.
Yeah,
right?
he's still alive.
Yeah. It was Neil Armstrong that passed away.
Yeah.
Right? But he came down, and
He
was really weird. He had the weirdest behavior after coming down from the moon, right? And he was so, I would be, yes, I went to the moon. It was amazing. I got to see, you know, I'd have been talking to the end of time about that. And Tony brings up a really good point. We should all be celebrating, right? The first one small step for man, right? I mean, how prophetic was that? I mean, not prophetic, how iconic is that phrase, and how much did it make sense at that time and still throughout? And I forgot about it. If I go tell my kids right now, my kids won't have any idea. You know, so it's not cherished as it should as a moment in humanity, right? Of what we did. We went to the moon, and no one's ever been back. Never been back. And then they say, see, and the thing is, I've heard this, but I haven't fully verified it yet. And nowadays, you have to do that. Well, you have to always do that. But I mean, with all the disinformation that's out nowadays, it's crazy. NASA, according to some, has lost the technology to going back to the moon.
I've watched him say that.
Yeah, Don Petit or Pettit or something like that.
Mhm.
That's the classic clip. Yeah.
Yeah, they've lost the technology to go to the moon.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't make sense to me. There was another clip about the Van Allen radiation belt.
Yes.
And one of the astronauts said, well, we didn't know it was there.
Right.
So it wasn't there.
Right.
And we went right through it. It wasn't a problem. I'm like,
Yeah,
really?
they never heard of it.
Really? So that's all it takes. I'm like, okay. Let me plead ignorance to these things and walk right through and see what happens. You know, so it's very weird stuff. But I will say that I think we've been there.
Wow.
And I'm not ruling out the possibility of off-planet civilizations on the moon.
Wow.
I'm not ruling out the possibility of off-planet civilizations on Mars and on Phobos. Right? Phobos is hollowed out. It's a hollowed out moon of Mars, dude. You know, and it looks like the Death Star. Okay. It really freaking does. So, you know, I'm not ruling any of that stuff out. And plus, I love the conspiracy theory Project Pegasus. Yeah. Right. Which says that Barack Obama was on Mars. You can't freaking pass that up, bro. Like, come on. So, I mean, yeah, I think we did make it to the moon. I do.
Wow.
Now, that being said, I don't know. Okay, I just think we have. I don't know a damn thing. And I am. Tomorrow you can ask me this question, and I might tell you, nah, bro, we didn't make it to the moon. I think I've said that in interviews in the past. We didn't make it to the moon. You know, but as of right now, I think we have made it to the moon. It's just what we've been shown isn't exactly on the up and up. Oh, one other thing before I throw it back at you, buddy. No. I was in Washington, D.C. At what is it? The temple, the Freemasonic temple. I always forget the name of this Freemasonic temple in Washington, D.C., but it's in the headquarters. Shit, I'll think of it. Anyway, it's dope. If you're ever in Washington, D.C., go. It's a free tour that you get. You don't have to pay for it. It's dope, and it's beautiful.
It's Scottish
yeah,
Rite
just called Scottish Rite House.
No. There's a name to it. Hold on, let me look it up real quick.
Scottish Rite House of the Temple.
The House of the Temple. Thank you very much. That's what it's called. Go. If you're ever in DC, go. It's an experience. Albert Pike is buried in there. Mm-hmm. My son got to sit on the throne of the Grand Master.
Wow.
Right? They
Wow.
treated us like freaking royalty. You know, it was awesome. And everything my kid asked, they explained it to him as best as possible because my kid wanted to come with me. And he's like, "Why are they snakes on the wall?" And then they proceeded to explain it to him. It was an excellent experience. Anyway, downstairs, they have 3 floors to it, I think. One is a library. It looks like you're stepping into Harry Potter. It's crazy. The library is ridiculous. And it looks like like Dumbledore's office, right? And then downstairs, which I didn't get to go to, they have the Freemasonic flag that was put on the moon because Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are both 33rd degree Freemasons, right?
There's a commission lodge on the moon. You can join it. It's called Tranquility Lodge.
Are you serious?
If you're a Master Mason, you can write in and get an application. You can join the Moon Lodge.
Wow. Are you serious?
I'm serious. You can look it up.
Wow.
Tranquility Lodge.
So they supposedly did a Freemasonic ritual while they were on the moon. And they planted the flag there. So the flag that they have is a replica of that flag because the Freemasonic flag is still up there. So those are all tidbits that sparked in my head as a result of your question. But yeah, I think we made it. If we didn't make it, we're in a whole shitload of trouble. Because things are way more serious than we think if we didn't make it for a lot of the reasons that Tony described. Because how many things have to go south or how many things are completely lies and bullshit, right? And there are some that will argue that all of this stuff is completely lies and bullshit. I choose not to look at life that way, and I don't see the evidence for it just yet. Until Jack comes up with something.
I'm just blown. I mean, you guys, I like, because you're like I don't mean an older generation of like conspiracy. You've been in.
You calling me old, bro?
You know, how about wise? How about wiser generation of? But dude, I'm like blown away that, and you guys have very reasonable takes. That's why I always like listening to both of you. I like people that act like they know it all, drive me crazy. But I can't find the book, and it was when I first started podcasting. It was like the moon landing one. And the big things they brought up were the spacesuits. They were made by Playtex, by women that were making bras the day before. And the person that oversaw them was a TV repairman. And then the other big thing was, and they have to withstand plus 200, minus 200. And then the film, so it's Kodak made the film. It was the Hasselblad camera, not a special film. Film deteriorates in negative 30-degree weather. It's going into negative 200 to plus 200 in a second, supposedly. This film doesn't melt. It's not special film. The camera was just painted silver. It was a Hasselblad camera. And then he brought up, and because you guys are saying like this should be a holiday. Well, Kodak had like their 100-year anniversary or whatever it was. And the guy who wrote this book, which I cannot for the life of me find which one I read, but he goes to Kodak on this 100-year anniversary. And they have this big thing. Not once in their 100-year anniversary do they ever bring up that they were the camera, they were the film that was brought up on the moon. Now, you would think if you are the only camera to do this event, that would be on the top of your list of things that you accomplished in 100 years. But never once do they bring it up. And I just, you guys are, I'm shocked. And I get what you're saying. It's hard how do you reconcile the two? Like,
Well, just reconcile going back to the beginning of the 20th century. You had the creation of alternating current. You had Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
We electrify. I mean, most of the industrialized world, the first world, gets electrified. Then at the same time, you have the emergence of the aircraft. And by 1945, we've split the atom, and we're dropping fission bombs, atomic bombs, the first series of those. In 1946, we discovered DNA. So everything is on track for a moon landing by into 1960s. I mean, Kennedy talked about landing and putting a man on the moon by the end of the decade in 1961. So I don't think that's unreasonable. I think what the real conspiracy and the things that people should be thinking about is what's wrong with us now? What happened? I mean, the height of technology is to be able to do surveillance on people with social media, and you can take pictures of your food. That's it. I mean, and we've dumbed down. I mean, think about this. I saw a meme the other day and it said, your car manual used to tell you how to change your valves, and now it tells you not to drink your coolant fluid.
Interesting.
It says,
That's
don't drink
hilarious.
the coolant, don't drink the antifreeze. You know, that's not drinkable, right? But it used to tell you how to like do a tune up.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
We're not smarter.
It's the de-evolution of
sure.
mankind, bro.
There's something wrong. And so I subscribe to the conspiracy that everything that's happening right now is meant to stunt our growth. And you can look at the timelines. 1971, this country went off the gold standard. Okay.
Yeah.
Not that we were really on it before. We cheated.
Yes.
That's why we went off of it, because we couldn't produce the gold other countries wanted. So then you get this massive influx of fake. Everything's fake. When you have fake money, you have fake leaders, fake news, fake politicians, fake reality. It's all fake, right? I get that, but it's just the sequence of events that happened in the early 70s. The same year that we opened China, 72, and then 73, we had the Trilateral Commission, and we stopped going to the moon, if that's what we were doing. Again, I'm agnostic. More of me believes that we went, but if, like I was telling Sean Hibbler, who's a flat earther, he was on Don Jeffrey's show. And I said, if you took me up into the upper orbit, and he doesn't believe that you can even get there, but I say, if you did, and I looked down and it was flat, it wouldn't break my heart. I'd be like, wow, I was wrong. And I'd be like, but I think if we were on track for that, so what would happen? That's my question.
Interesting, dude. And you're absolutely right that we've gotten so much dumbed down, but it's so like, dude, I could believe it. And I'd agree with Billy that footage is 100% fake. If that's what if you're saying that's no, there's no way it is. It's not real. Everything's wrong with it. That could be wrong with it. Like, I think the doom buggy or whatever, it wouldn't even fit in the ship. The measurements, like, even if you folded it up, it wouldn't fit. And it looks like I made it with lawn chairs, dude. You're telling me that thing's gonna work in negative 200 degrees? I don't think so. I
saw
don't know.
A replica of it at the Smithsonian.
Is it?
Yeah, it's there. A replica of it. You could go check it out at the Smithsonian, and it's like, it really does look like aluminum foil. Like
it is aluminum foil for sure.
I remember taking pictures, and I sent them to my guys at the Iron Realm Media. Shouts to Josh, Corey, and Uncle Walt. They're flat earthers, So when I was there, I started taking pictures and I sent it to them. Like, take a look at this. But I believe they made it. Like I said before, at least maybe it's wishful thinking. I don't know, Jack.
I hear you, dude. It is. So that is a good. Did you guys see? I don't have Apple TV, but my colleague at work, he brought up the show. I don't know if you guys heard of it. I forget what it's called now, but it's like, I love these shows, like Man in the High Castle, like if the Nazis won the war, and this was if the Russians beat the Americans to the moon,
right.
And so that's what this show is about. It's on Apple TV, but that is the one thing I struggle is with. Why, if we lied about all this. And have you guys ever seen the documentary it was on Amazon? It was about how it was formed by like a French guy or something, and how like Kissinger killed 3 CIA guys that helped stage the moon landing, and they ran away. Wow. He killed them. Oh, dude, you guys gotta watch. And Donald Rumsfeld was a part of it, but these 3 CIA guys, they all got killed, like car crashes with 20 bullets rated in them. They, all these, but and the one guy was a Russian astronaut, kind of, or in their space program. And he said in this documentary, oh, we knew it was fake. It was totally fake. But that would be the difficult part. If we're truly at war or battling these people, why wouldn't they call that out? And then my only response would be is because they wanted to launder money as well and get boatloads. But
maybe
it's a hard, it's a difficult topic, but I'm shocked, dude. I'm so shocked that you two are in this camp. Blows my mind.
I was going to ask, I've never asked Billy this, and I keep forgetting to ask him. Since we're live on Jack's show, I'll ask you, Billy, what was Jim Mars? What was his take on it? I've tried to really find it. I've read almost all of his books cover to cover.
Right.
And I read one recently. It was called Above Top Secret. And he takes the scenario just like you described, where we faked the footage, but we went. And that was some of the readers were saying, but he covers the moon landing in that book, but I never heard Jim Mars say we didn't go.
I don't think, and don't quote me on this, but I remember listening to a lot of Jim Mars on interviews around the internet. I think Coast to Coast AM. I'm not sure, but I think he subscribed to us making it to the moon, but he was just researching everything and giving whatever he found. But I think he subscribed to that. That being said, I'm not 100%, so don't quote me. But I think that's what I remember. I'll look that up.
I'm trying because I read a few of it and like Rise of the Fourth Reich. He talks about the Nazis and how he brings up this point that all of NASA launches and the Soviet launches have been performed on occult significant days. So he's big on that. But I think his logic is I would want to say he thinks they did go, but yeah. Jim Marrs also like, and I love his books, but he also talks about how they came up with, or they discovered, what Orm, have you guys ever heard of this stuff? Orms. And it's like this subatomic gold that lets you travel through time and
it's
become
the Philosopher's
weightless.
Stone. It's monatomic gold.
Yeah. So what is it called? It's called Orm, right? I can't
think you're right. I just know it as monatomic gold.
Yes.
I started reading about that in like 2004 after my tour in Iraq.
Is that what they said the manna from the Ark of the Covenant was? I
believe so. And then it had like anti-gravitational properties. It had healing. It was supposedly what when you refer to the Philosopher's Stone, that's what you're looking for. They used to think it was just base metals turned into gold, but that's not really what they were looking for. They were looking for monatomic gold.
Right. Yeah.
He can disappear, like it's interdimensional too.
Once you heat it up to a certain degree, you become weightless and can like disappear. And then once you cool it down, it reappears. Like you could put something in a pan but I remember Jim was talking about that in a few books. He brings that up. That's why did you, were you just interested about Jim Marrs, Tony? Or why did you ask
he's somebody that I respect. I mean, we've gotten the wheels have come off in the last 10 years. For responsible discourse. And I'm not, again, I think that a lot of the alternative media is tilting towards, it's either it's in a camp of it's being controlled by things, or it is tilting towards nihilism. Like nothing's real. You hear that a lot. Nothing's real. That's all fake. Everything's fake. Everything.
Yes.
Okay, then why even tell anybody? Like if nothing matters, like that's always my argument against the nihilist anyway, is they're always saying nothing matters. And then why tell me?
Yeah.
So I think that Jim Marrs is one of those anchors for me. Like, I mean, I think the Kennedy assassination was a conspiracy. I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald did it. I think he was a patsy, like he said. I think the World Trade Centers were brought down not by jihadists, but I think there was a controlled demolition, and I think it was a Lee Hop. You can go through every conspiracy. I'm willing to give my opinion on that. That banishes me from. Like I come out of the realm of conservative talk. I was always again discarded, not welcome, but I was allowed in. I'm still there. Yeah. But I mean, the things I talk about now, I'm done. Like I'm never going to get to have a certain audience. I'm fine with that because I like the things I talk about. Mm. But I think Jim Marrs is one of those people that just a good-hearted person, and I mean. If you ever watch those old interviews, like his last ones, we go on InfoWars with Alex Jones, and they were just buddies. Like, we can get some tacos and beer later, old man, and it just seemed like, he was just a good, genuine person because there's so much agenda and grifting now. You know what I'm talking about, guys. I mean, it's just, you see it everywhere. And a lot of hatred. I'd say hatred, but a lot of anger. And then you said at the beginning of the show, Jack, you talked about people just so sure of themselves. I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not going to call it a regret, but, well, maybe, I guess it's a small regret that, I never reached out to Jim Marrs, and I was gonna, like, he was on the list, and I had his contact, and I'm sure he'd have come on the Fringe. I'm sure I would have had a whole conversation with him, and then he passed away. And I felt like, damn, I missed that opportunity to talk to him. He's a legend that I didn't get to talk to. Yeah. Right. But he left so much for us to digest, right? To look over and marinate on.
Yeah. I'd be interested in his, especially like that's, you can't talk to these people again, but like that book, Rise of the Fourth Reich, he puts the theory that the Nazis are running the US government, which I think now I wonder if he would still have that theory, because I think it's a little, I think it would be ridiculous to say that, especially in today's day, to maybe some aspects, the surveillance part or certain things. But so I would love
They'd
like
be
some of the
100. They'd be 105 years old. I mean, the Operation Paperclip people were
I
mostly dead.
Yeah, I think he's like in that book. He's like saying like how the Bushes were Nazis and that the government
All right.
is secretly being run by like Nazis and their descendants. But I just meant that today, like you couldn't. None of there's no resembling of what the Nazis did compared to America today. So like besides the surveillance aspect, in my opinion, or um, besides that, I don't know what you would say. Oh, see, it's definitely Nazis running the government.
Well, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I would love to.
The and I forget what most recently I heard this somewhere, and I forget where I heard it. But we're taught that the Allies won this war, right? And we did on the surface, but did the Nazis really lose the war? Maybe this was Tony saying it in one of his shows. I don't know. Did the Nazis really lose World War II? Right? Because they came over to America and they were let to do whatever the hell they wanted. They went down to Argentina and Chile and Peru and still stayed over there. Hitler probably escaped and went to Indonesia. There's stories about that he had a whole family over there.
Wow, I didn't hear that.
Damn, I forget the name. Ratline was the name of the book by Peter Levenda.
Ah, okay. Peter Levenda.
It's really good. The book is really good. But he details it, and there's pictures. You go look them up. I don't know all the details of the book, but if you're interested, go check it out. Regardless, of the U.S. government cherry-picked Nazis, brought them over here, and used them to start up NASA, and God knows what else. You understand? And so I am not ruling out that America. I mean, it's not even something to rule out. America was run by Nazis for a while, and could you still make that argument today? It's like a religion. We talk about, but they won't keep these philosophies. These people are dead, right? But Christians have been Christians for how many years? It's a hand down. The philosophy is handed down. Right. The way of thinking, the frame of mind, the morality. It's the same thing with things like this. And there's people evolve. It's like if you remember Austin Powers, when Dr. Evil got out of jail and number 2 was like, dude, he's like, we're not trying to take over the world anymore. It's corporations, and that's how you take over the world. So, I mean, I wouldn't rule out the fact that I wouldn't rule out a possibility of Nazis still running the United States. And let's look at the CIA for that matter. I know you wanted to talk about the CIA, right? And the CIA, if we're talking about, well, the Bushes came later, but the CIA was started by, in essence, at its core, is the Skull and Bones Secret Society,
right?
Intimately involved there. The Skull and Bones Secret Society has its roots in Germany with the Thule Society, right? So the story goes that the Thule Society, this is chapter 322 of the Thule Society in Yale, Skull and Bones, right? So if we follow that frame of thinking, and if that line, if those connections are correct, the CIA is still in operation. It was founded by occultist Nazis, That's I think Adolf Hitler was a part of the Thule Society. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom.
Yeah, the Vril.
The Vril also. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I think you're right. But I think the issue is you go back and look at the works of Anthony Sutton.
Right.
Anthony Sutton wrote Wall Street in the Third Reich.
Amazing.
And Wall Street in the Bolshevik Revolution. Okay. You look at the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia to give birth to communism. It was funded by the world's richest people, the Warburgs, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds,
the Harrimans.
Right. So we know this. They also knew that they had to create a bulwark in Europe after they gave birth to this monster. So they helped the Third Reich out. These big companies like IG Farben and others funded. I mean, the Prescott Bush. I mean, The only reason he wasn't tried under the Trading with the Enemies Act is he started the USO. So if you've ever been to a USO event, if you're in the military, that was brought to you in part by Prescott Bush, the same guy whose name is on the masthead of Planned Parenthood in the first letter.
Beautiful.
Of fundraising. So I think what you're looking at is a continuation of that bulwark of the monster that they started. I mean, look at the Hegelian dialectic, right? Thesis versus antithesis creates synthesis throughout history, right? And so the elites figured this out. Like, why don't we just create our own cycle? We'll create the antithesis to the thesis. We already know what the synthesis is going to be. It's going to be a one world totalitarian socialist government. How do we get there? We need tension. We need maximum tension. Stasis was the bomb. The bomb is stasis. No more world wars, no more Churchills, no more Stalins, no more Hitlers. They're buffoons after this. We're just going to have buffoons running everything because no one will be able to be a great conqueror because in an age of nuclear weapons. I mean, name a great conqueror in our lifetime, right? There is none. You can't be a great, there's no more Pattons. There's no more MacArthur's. They're not in an age of nukes. So I think at a base level, and Jim Marrs, I think, made a lot of compelling arguments about what happened with Martin Bormann took all of the corporations. I mean, they knew exactly what was going to happen. They started building out their network of finance for after the war. And they look at what happened to the Roman Empire when it collapsed. Did it go away? No, it became the Roman Church, became the Vatican, right? That's the new empire, the Holy Roman Empire. That's what came out of the ashes. So I think the military-industrial complex, in large part, like you look at fluoride in the water, they're like, hey, you put fluoride in the water, right? And there's Operation Paperclip people, and we're like, no. Well, you got to do that, to keep people docile. And they're like, oh, sure, we'll start that right away. We'll get Alcoa, we'll get on it, and they just went out. So I think there's a lot of truth to it. But as far as saying like, oh, Nazis run, Jim Marrs had a great point on this too. He's like, with the Bushes, you had National Socialism because that's what the Patriot Act, the homeland. I mean, you ever heard a more Nazi-ish term? The homeland. What other land is there? Do you have home? Do you claim land somewhere else? I mean, this is so weird.
Now we have the Department of Homeland Security.
So like stuff hopes the homeland. Okay. Yeah. So you have, but he said that National Socialism under Bush, and then Barack Obama was your international Marxism. I mean, they both suck. You either get the right-wing Marxist now or the left-wing Marxist. I mean, that's where I came out of the school of conservatism fighting the neoconservatives, the Trotskyites. It's funny because everything tracks back to the bankers and the communists.
Always.
At some level.
Always.
And it's so funny to watch now because it makes and I may not get to do it in this life. I pray like maybe the next life that I'll be able to talk to people, because you can't talk to people now, but like, hey, when you were like, dyeing your hair purple and screaming against capitalism with your, $800 phone and your $20 latte drink, did you ever stop to think that somebody funded your movement and it was the world's richest people? I mean, I'm just blown away. I'll be 100 if I live to be that old. I'll be 100 years old going, do you know the world's richest people fund communism? My God.
Well, dude, that was the best. Sutton's books. Everyone needs to read those. I mean, that's why I brought up how you were saying, like, would Russia allow because those books, he shows totally how all of these the communism, the Bolsheviks, the Nazis, none of it would have happened without Wall Street's funding. And so that brought me to this point that they're all on the same team. All like there is no animosity between Putin and America. Just the same way there was no real animosity between the Bolsheviks and America then, even though we were all yay capitalism. They're these evil because they're all funded by the same people. So I struggle to believe that these days, I struggle to believe that there's an actual war that people, that our leaders hate Putin because they're all the same. They're all the same team, or they're all funded by the same people. Do you subscribe to that? Like, what do you think that this war with Russia, or like, I believe maybe World War I, it was a real war, in the Boer War, like they were actual animosity there. But anymore, it's just this WWE to, like how you said, the synthesis, antithesis, and thesis, or whatever. What do you think?
Well, with the leaders, it's always fake for the most part.
Mm.
With the people, it's real. Like you have hatred for the other person because
Like
the propaganda is real. You know,
Right.
you dehumanize the other side. You just make them into base animals that can be killed because that's the point, right?
Right.
Destroy. But then you look at things like, you know, Churchill was so anti-communist. I mean, just wrote the most heinous things against the communists and wanted to go to war to stop the Bolsheviks from taking power in Russia in 1917, 1980. He wanted to go and overturn it. And even into the 20s was really bellicose about just starting a war with the Soviets.
Yeah.
He sounded a lot like Hitler for a long time. He talked a lot about we got to take them out, you know, and Marxism and the satanic part of it. And then you fast forward to Yalta and they're having their drinks and carving up the world. And I mean, you know, do you do that with people that you detest, or you do?
Right.
I mean, they found common cause and they decided that you're going to take out the Third Reich. And so, no, I mean, once you learn enough history, you just think so much of this is, I mean, Henry Ford said it best. History is bunk.
Billy, do you think that, like, I like what you said, Tony, though, the people, it's real to the people, but not the leaders. But do you think that this animosity between us and Russia is actual animosity? Does our government hate Putin? Is it just distraction?
It's in my opinion, I think earlier you brought up a WWE thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And most wrestling fans, I don't know. There are some wrestling fans that subscribe to what we subscribe to, and they're able to view things differently as a result because they've been trained by the WWE. And I've been trained by the WWE all my life. So, and they tell me, is wrestling fake? So I tell them, nah, wrestling is scripted. It's not fake. Go ask all these, and I know quite a few of them, professional wrestlers, if that shit is fake. They're hurting. They're hurting, you know. Their bodies are broken down. You know, I saw Greg the Hammer Valentine about 3 years ago, and he could barely walk. It's a big, strong dude. If you see Greg the Hammer Valentine in his prime, he could barely walk because of how many bumps he'd taken. Now they go to the back and they're cool, right? Now what Tony says is very important. I always talk about the people in division. We are the people. We need to realize that we are the ones that are on the bad end of the stake all the freaking time. We are the people. So yeah, it's real to us. They send people overseas, right? They send our freaking people overseas. They send our daughters and our sons overseas. Tony had to go.
Mm-hmm.
They send us out there to die. They send us out there to die. So it's very real for us. But for them, look at Mohammed bin Salman and Joe Biden not too long ago, right? They made a big deal out of the fist bump from hell.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, what's up, buddy? What's going on? What's the deal, you know? Let's go have some whatever, you know, some of the fine wine. We're going to go chill. When Biden was running, he was like, I'm going to get you. We talked about this on America Unplugged. He's like, I'm coming for you. You killed, what is it, Khashoggi? And that will not stand. I am an American, and we stand for American rights and moral, you know, the whole deal. He gave a whole WWE promo straight out of Monday Night Raw. And then he goes, sees the guy, and he's like, yo, what's up, my guy? How you doing?
I can just hear him saying,
all that
like,
stuff is all good.
Dude, I can just listen. I'm thinking of Joe Biden, be like, I'm coming for you. This is it's just making me laugh. It's hilarious.
Dude, if I always say, if Joe Biden was in his prime, because he's of course not that.
No.
But if he was in his prime when he was running against Donald Trump, it would have been the most entertaining presidential race ever in the history, because that's like, if you can compare Joe Biden and early Joe Biden to Ric Flair, straight up. Like, he was just unhinged. He would say whatever the hell is on his mind, just like Trump does, and boom. Like I mean, Biden is far removed from that.
They did a really bad job when they cloned him.
Yes,
yeah,
this really clone, man.
They got a horrible
It
version.
only goes to show how far behind we are in technology. We should be further. We should have created a perfect Joe
See, in
Biden
the
clone, but we
70s,
did
the
not.
clones were much more accurate. But just to
Exactly.
go to Tony's point, we're getting dumber. The clones are getting worse.
They're
In
phoning
the
it
70s,
outsourced it.
Peter Beater, I don't know, since we're over here naming all these conspiracy guys, Peter Beater in the 70s, he was a liberal conspiracy theorist. Go check him out. He said that everybody in the Supreme Court was replaced by Russian robotoids. And these robotoids were clones. And he said that each and every one of them, and the Pope was replaced by a Russian robotoid. Very interesting, excellent conspiracy. Go check that out. All his stuff is on YouTube for free. And let me tell you, he has Bill Cooper style delivery. It's engaging as hell. So go check that out. But all of these leaders, what's up, buddy?
He's got a book, The Conspiracy Against the Dollar.
Yeah, it's him. Yeah, okay. He's the dude. But all of these the majority of these leaders just don't subscribe to this animosity is built up, right? But it's only for perception's sake. It's built up in the eyes of the people so we can see, so we can believe and buy into what's going on. It's just, again, going back to the WWE, there is a heel and there is a face. There's a good guy and there's a bad guy. Russia is our bad guy, right? China is our bad guy for the right, and Russia is bad guy for the left, you know? And they are the biggest heels. It's Hulk Hogan against who was the maybe Sergeant Slaughter at the time, or The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? They always had somebody. This is what this is. So they build it up, and it's this fake animosity because the people, man, we love each other, man. Bottom line, like, there's our minds have been colonized to the point that there is animosity with the people now. But in reality, we enjoy sharing each other's cultures and learning from one another, right? It's a beautiful thing. Most of the people don't want to go to war. You know, they say they do, let's go to war. But when it comes to you going to war, no, you don't want to go to war, right? So it's not a thing. This is all fabricated. But sure, war is real and people die, but it's real to us. It's like Tony says, it's real to us. But on another level, it's like a Russian doll. You got to keep going further and further into it. At its core, there's a totally different agenda.
I mean, Nixon back in 48, you know, when he was a congressman and eventually senator, he called Mao a monster.
Really?
I mean, it's just hardcore anti-communist, was friends with Joe McCarthy. And then he got put on Eisenhower's ticket, you know, and spent some time there. And by 1972, he's toasting Mao. Yeah. The leaders change, things change, but people, we're still engaged in this, you know, in these endless wars. So, you know, as far as the Russian-Ukrainian thing, I think it's a mixed bag. I think a big part of it's fake. Other parts of it are real, like what led up to it, because I know the history of that, like the backdrop to us promising we wouldn't expand NATO and lying to them. You know, we gave a pledge, we lied. That was Secretary of State James Baker under Bush 41. So they lied and we expand. We've been actively, aggressively boxing in Russia. It'd be like, you know, if China had a trade and military alliance with Mexico and then just started parking biolabs and intelligence and nukes here. And we'd be like, wait, there's Chinese right over across the border. I'm like, yeah, calm down. We're just right here on your border. That's what we're doing with Ukraine. And it would be it'd be kind of like if Texas broke. It's because Ukraine, it means borderland. Yeah. And it was part of the Soviet Union. I mean, again, it's not different enough. Like I was thinking about like who wins this war. And I'm like, well, we've put $60 billion into that we know of into Ukraine. And what's really weird about all this, there's an article that came out today on Zero Hedge. And it talked about how the Ukrainian government is having to sell off all of its gold reserves because the West is telling them to. And I'm in the gold and silver business. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, you give them 60 billion in fake money, but you want the real stuff on the open market. You want them to sell their gold. Isn't that interesting? So there's always a way to rob people and hurt people and make money off of blowing things up. I mean, these people are psychotic. I mean, the top upper echelon that run things. I mean, they are literally mentally ill. So that is a thing. And I think Billy's right. I mean, it's WWE and it's acting, but at some level, war is like a fire. You can control fire for a while, but then it can get away from you.
That's fair.
And you're talking in an age of nuclear weapons when people have lost their minds. I mean, again, you read a book like Barbara Tuchman, The Guns of August. She wrote that in the 60s. It's one of the things that JFK read that book during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And that's why he stopped the war. Because all of his every advisor that Kennedy had said airstrikes followed by invasion. They even brought back Dean Acheson, that was the Secretary of State under Truman. Everybody told him, hit it. And he did a back channel communique and traded the Jupiter missiles in Turkey. Right? You just did it. We'll trade the missiles in Turkey. We'll get rid of those. You take the missiles out of Cuba. Right? So you go back to that and you look at all the things that lead up to war. And what scares me, Jack, is those people were way smarter. I mean, what is going on? Like, I mean, that's the waking nightmare that I have, is that we've got more dangerous weapons than we've ever had before, and more tension, and the dumbest people. It's not a good combo.
Not a good combo. I know you're I'm changing the topic just a bit. Have you ever read, Tony, the book Gold Warriors?
No,
It's about 19 after war, how the Japanese for 100 years, they dominated Asia prior to obviously World War II, and they accumulated football fields lit of gold, and they buried it in all these underground bunkers in the Philippines. They sunk ships with, like, I'm not exaggerating, billions of dollars worth of gold. The CIA after World War II, well, I guess the OSS, they found it. Nixon was a part. He was somehow Dulles, all those guys. And they never talked about it because they knew it would crash the gold market. But they had, like trillions of dollars worth of gold that they whisked away in all these secret accounts. So they don't say this theory in the book, but my theory is that they used that money to fund CIA and any black project they wanted, because it was literally trillions of dollars worth of gold, and they found it all. So have you ever read that book?
No, I've not read that,
dude. I'm gonna send it to you. You're gonna love it. But I don't know why I brought that. I'll send you
that's a good point, because a lot, you were talking about the Ukrainian gold.
Yes, that's why I brought it up.
What happens after a country is conquered? And nobody really ever talks about. I mean, they have wealth, they had riches. I mean, you look at Chiang Kai-shek.
Yes.
Right? Before Mao took over, supposedly, there's a great story, and I'd love to reread it. It's in The Killing of Uncle Sam. Rodney Howard Brown wrote that book, and it's a great book. But he talks about how under the Chiang Kai-shek, they had this massive amount of gold, and what they did is they stored it, and they had the Federal Reserve write them notes for it, the American Federal Reserve Bank.
Hilarious.
And so this family had all these notes that were authentic, like for billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And then they kind of disappeared into history because they were hunted by Mao.
Right.
And then they just show up again, and they're like, hey, we have these notes. We want to cash them in. And the Federal Reserve's like, that's fake. Right. And then like authenticators are like, no, we've never seen anything like that, but that's real. Like, it was like everything was real about. They even took it to court, and then the court would be like, oh, we're going to look at it. And they're like, oh, your time has expired.
Right.
So it's clearly real. But yeah, that's the stealing. It's funny that's what the business is theft right at the top. It's just stealing.
Yeah. That's in, yeah. And that's what happened in this story too. Like, people, like this Japanese emperor, he like maybe was hooking up with this young Filipino boy, but he gave him the treasure maps, and he gave him like what to do to collect for his payment. And his family tries to cash it in, but he goes to court, and they throw it out, or they lock the door. Like, all these insane things happen, so he can't get the gold, so they can just continue holding it, never have to admit it's real. But yeah, I'll send you that, because I'd love your take. I read it in the Silver Short. I think I mentioned that on your show, or whoever's show that. And yeah, and he references that book in it. And so that's how I found it. But so I wanted to ask you, this was my bit. This can be like our last topic or whatever. But so I was telling these guys before the show started how the CIA, when it started, obviously it was this anti-communist organization. That was, they had all this, they were using drugs selling drugs to fund the war, to fight communism, all these underground or like, the sleeper armies and militaries all over Eastern Europe. But what I struggled with is that's what they say they do. But if you look at the CIA today, this is clearly not the case. They push like this corporate socialist or communistic government. So I wanted your guys' takes on, was Alan Dulles lying when he said that he wanted to fight communism? Was it just, again, this WWE stuff to give him a purpose for his people to spy? Or what happened? Did opinions change? So that's, Tony, if you want to start, or yeah.
Well, I believe it was Alan Dulles. He was connected to European and German banking, even up until World War II, and had ties to what I believe like the proto, or at least in the periphery of the Third Reich. And so that's where you get like this concept of us absorbing the Third Reich and the Nazis in Operation Paperclip, and we became the military industrial complex. I think that a lot of the anti-communist stuff was real. I think that that's why they would go to such lengths to murder JFK. Because you get Khrushchev goes to the UN, right? Takes off his shoe, bangs it on the podium, and says, "We're going to bury you." And think about that. This is an age of hydrogen bombs and tension, and this guy, this unhinged bald guy, gets up, and just bangs on the podium at the UN and says, "We will bury you. Your children will live under communism."
Yeah,
there was just as much fervor on the other side, and I think you look at somebody like a JFK, who comes on the scene, and then you listen to his speeches at American University. And he's saying, I'm talking about genuine peace. He's not the peace of the slave, or the security of the slave, or the peace of the grave. I'm talking about genuine peace. And he keeps like peace is to him was a way of life and something to strive. Like that was the goal, not winning, but peace. Like, because we all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future, and we're all mortal. Like, you listen to that speech, like nobody talks that way anymore. This is a dangerous guy to the system. So, yeah, I think they would do that. I think my guess is a series of, everybody benefits at some level by having this guy off. And you have somebody like a Dulles, the Dulles brothers. I think that they had a lot to gain from that. I think that the military industrial complex had a lot to gain. Things wear out. What's the second law of thermodynamics? Isn't it entropy? We're not the same place. It's not the same. Like there was a great line I'll never forget reading. It was by a Soviet propagandist at the end of the Cold War. And he said, "We've done something far greater to you than defeat you. We've taken away your enemy, and now you're lost."
Ooh,
and so powerful. You look at how schizophrenic and weird we got when we didn't have, because we were a good country. I remember I was in the 80s as a 5-year-old kid, and when Rocky 4 came out, like this was the war, and it was red, white, and blue, and we got Wall Street, we got capitalism, we got all this stuff, right? And it just seemed like at least like the colors were brighter. And now, after they took that, nature abhors a vacuum, so we filled it with fake things, like we're going to go to war with jihad, right? Or and it's like, Gore Vidal said it best. He's like, a war on terror is like a war on dandruff. Like, how do you, that's the open-ended, never-ending thing, right? So we just went on these endless crusades, of which I was a part of 3 of those foreign wars. So we went on these endless crusades, and we lost our way. I mean, the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act.
We need that to keep us safe, Tony. I don't know why you're such a goddamn communist.
So I think, the CIA, you look at, gosh, they were losing their way back when. You look at MK Ultra. You look at the Chaos book by Tom O'Neill, and he talks about the connections to Manson. Yeah. These guys were just off, unhinged psychopaths, just messing with people and, imprisoning people. And so, were they really anti-communist? I think so. But, there is a point to people like Gary Allen and Anthony Sutton, and I'll tell this, and then we'll throw it to, but I'm sure I'll think of something, because Billy will say something. I'm like, oh, why didn't I say that? Right?
The other way around.
But I remember something that I read Doyle Shamley, who was Bill Cooper's right-hand man out in Eager, Arizona. And he was in the first Gulf War. He said they would be blowing up these Iraqi tanks, which were Soviet tanks, right? And every tank has a data plate. So, at that time, Doyle Shamley had read, Gary Allen, None Dare Call It Conspiracy, how they're basically the bankers are, funding both sides, and the Soviets know it. They're just playing a game for power and everything, and it's just another system. He said when they blew up these tanks, they'd go and every tank has a data plate. They take the data plate off. He turned it and reversed it around. It was in English, not Russian, not Arabic, English.
Interesting.
You got to look at all the stuff that we did during Lend-Lease. And here's another thing too. And this is why it may not be real, or maybe not everybody's in on it. That's another thing too. Everything's compartmentalized, and it's not just a top-down deal. I remember I served in wars where I was dealing with, we had CIA and FBI and top intelligence people, like high ranking. We were looking for Osama bin Laden, but guess what? The real people at the top.
That's a good point. That's a fair point.
So I think that there's a point to be made about compartmentalization and what's real and what isn't. And I don't think the CIA's mission anymore is to be anti-communist. I don't even think they oppose other governments per se. I think they're just for their own power or their own thing. I think they've become an organic phenomenon.
Interesting. Billy, your thoughts? You got a big smile on your face, so I'm waiting for something exciting.
Nothing exciting. Shouts to my boy Mark from Houston Tonic Live, who's currently watching. What's up, buddy? He made me laugh. The CIA. So could they have started off as you described? Absolutely. But what has the CIA brought us, man? Really, MK Ultra, for one, right? They are responsible for that. The assassination attempts on Fidel Castro and assassinating Trujillo in the Dominican Republic. Also attempting to assassinate several leaders in Jamaica that I can't think of off the top of my head right now, but they almost shot Bob Marley in the process. They trained the Contras in Nicaragua. This is not good, and it's Central Intelligence in the name of intelligence gathering, right? They probably had something to do with Gaddafi and getting rid of him.
Absolutely.
This is a cancer. The CIA is a cancer in the United States, and you can make the argument that the CIA has taken over the government of the United States. Straight up, like they are probably the top alphabet agency that we know of anyway. They even got their guy George W. Wright to be the president of the United States, right? Ultimately, I can't think of one positive thing that the CIA has done. Not one. Drone attacks. How many people are they responsible for killing? How many governments have been overthrown? You can make the argument that Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, all of a sudden he just died of cancer. They were thinking about doing things like this to Fidel Castro. So why didn't they do? Why couldn't we make the connection with Chavez in Venezuela? They've been wanting to overthrow that government for a long time. That's what the CIA serves to do.
They made sure we had bananas for a long time in 1954, though.
Right. Honduras, my mom's from Honduras. It's a banana republic, and it's that way for a reason. Thank you, CIA. What else? What am I missing? John would kill me. Brissom. Iran Contra.
And the Afghanistan, they overthrew they reinstalled the king as opposed to the guy who was nationalizing oil. Guatemala, when they caused 3 million innocents to be slaughtered because they got rid of our Benz. They're horrible. Just
right.
Yeah.
So regardless of their roots, it was always coming from a place of control. In my opinion, it was always coming from a place of evil. That's all they've ever done. We need to dismantle the CIA.
Smash into 1,000 pieces and scatter.
And that guy got killed. Shot in broad daylight by a probable CIA operation. right? And if you want to get into the occult aspects of it, right, and Skull and Bones, which we've already talked about that connection, and the killing of the king ritual that was supposedly took place in Dealey Plaza when they shot John F. Kennedy in broad daylight, right? All of that can be put in the pot, mixed around, and we have big conspiracy soup. But the bottom line is the CIA is not an ingredient that we want.
Tony, when you were bringing up Prescott Bush, I read this one Bush book. I think it's Samuel is his father. And as Prescott was, helping fund Hitler's rise to power, his father, Samuel, was being charged because he worked at a weapons factory. He ran it, and he was 70% of the rifles were sold in World War I to both sides were coming from his factory in Ohio. So he was getting charged with trading with the Enemies Act at the same time his son was funding Hitler. I didn't know if you ever heard that story before.
It wouldn't surprise me though.
Yeah. So I just found that. And so then, literally as his dad's being tried, he's doing the same exact thing. They didn't even.
I would bring up the point that's very seldom ever brought up, which is the fact that in World War I, you have the head of the central bank in the United States is Paul Warburg. And then in Germany, it's Max Warburg. They're brothers, right? I mean, and again, they were interconnected through banking lines, and they ran that for a while. And of course, Paul Warburg, that's who they based the character Daddy Warbucks off of, and you watch the movie.
I didn't know that.
Annie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because he's all powerful. He's more powerful than the president. They make that a point in the movie, or in the play, is more powerful than the president. So this country has two major curses in the last 100 years or so, and that's the 1913, where you get the Federal Reserve, the income tax, the direct election of senators, free trade, Wilson, the war to make the world safe for democracy. You got 1913, and then what you just brought up, Jack, which is 1947. 1947, very pivotal year in history, something you need to pay attention to, right? Because it's all kinds of things culminated in 47. I was thinking about doing a podcast on major years. I think my next year I'm going to do
that'd be a good idea.
1979, because that's a huge year. I'm going to hopefully have Billy on. We're going to do 1979 soon.
That's awesome.
But 47, you get the NSC 68, which is the Truman doctrine of containment. It creates a national security state. Gore Vidal wrote about this a lot. But the Air Force is born out of that. The Central Intelligence Agency is born out. The NSA is born out of that. 47 is the year of Roswell and Kenneth Arnold and the Flying Saucer. And just so much. 47 and you have the recognition of Israel. Everything's happening in 47, and it's to hurl us forward into where we are now. So something interesting, something to watch, because I agree with Billy. I can't think of one. We haven't won a war since World War II, because we declared war. It was the last declared war. We can't declare war now because we're in the UN. Not that we should declare war. I can't think of a war we should have fought.
Right.
So that's kind of people like, we haven't won a war. I'm like, good. We don't need to be, I guess, because we don't need to be fighting them. There's no one to fight. Think of the cataclysm that World War II was. 50 million dead. The world turned upside down. Europe in ashes, Japan's in ashes. And you know what we started that war over? Poland, right? And it was the beginning of the war. Britain gave a war guarantee to Poland. Right? And we said, you don't do that. You can't invade Poland. So Poland said, well, good, we're not going to negotiate anything. So they got invaded. 50 million people dead later, the world burning. We gave Poland to Stalin. That was what that was for.
Amazing. Wow.
Think about that. And I tell Ukraine to pay attention, because that's what happens. You are going to get, you're going to get it. That's the good war. What happens to you afterwards?
Right.
It's a fair point, dude.
And how many people died, right, in the Soviet Union in World War II? And those are our brothers and sisters, man. That we share so much in common, even though we are different in different regions of the world, and we're brought up differently, and we have different customs. We are the ones that die. We are the ones that they send out there to die. We are the ones that are sacrificed on the altar of the new world order for these people. That's why we all need to come together, but they're doing a hell of a job at keeping us apart, right?
Oh, it's pretty.
But as soon as we start realizing, as soon as we start seeing things like this, I'm like, oh, okay, well, world wars are happening, little wars are happening, big wars are happening. What's the common denominator here? It's us. We are the ones that are dying. We are the ones that are fighting while they sit in their mansions and eat and watch and instigate and make hard demands. You know, like they're the ones out there leading the charge, right?
Dude, I saw a statistic because I'm reading this Operation the Phoenix program, and it said how in Vietnam, 5% of the populace was politically active. It was like 2.5% were, ardent communists, ardent Viet Congs, 2.5 were ardent capitalists, and the 95% of the rest literally just wanted to live in their village, do what they did. They did at 5%, dude. And think of what this war brought them. What did it win? Did they, it was hell. It was hell.
Yeah. Literal hell.
Yeah.
I read an interesting statistic one time, years and years ago. I think I was still deployed overseas, and it was about how when the British left India, they went in and did a survey, and they went out in the rural areas of India to see what people thought of the British leaving, and what they thought of British rule. And the majority, once they got outside of the major cities, the number one answer to their question was, who?
Hilarious.
They didn't even know that the British had been there. So, we have, I think, our perception of reality too, because we're attracted to what's happening in the headlines, And I think it's important to study the past, to get a good book. I mean, we were talking off air. I'm like, what are you reading right now? I don't know. I have so much stuff, I find my interest because we're all trying to get to the next thing, and I think you train your mind, your smartphone trains you to do that. Just like, that's why we don't have any philosophers.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. We just don't have them because this takes long, deep dives of thinking. You have to be really disciplined in today's where you have to cut yourself off. The modern world's not built for thinking. Perhaps.
What was it? Ted Kaczynski.
Yeah, Unabomber.
The Unabomber.
My house and his are the same size.
Hey, but before I get into Ted, because it's there, that statement was pregnant with something, and I want to talk about Ted Kaczynski for a second in relation to your statement, but I don't want to forget when I was naming the CIA's greatest hits, their biggest hit, like we were talking about, I don't know if you remember, Tony, on Unplugged, that the Beatles come out, they play their biggest hits. Hey Jude is the biggest song ever. This is the biggest hit of the CIA. They are responsible and trained the Mujahideen and Osama bin Laden.
Yes.
Him.
Okay.
Yes.
And code name Tim Osman, Mr. Osama bin Laden, CIA agent. This is admitted, and we can't forget that. But Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, I was on with Charlie Robinson on his podcast about 3 weeks ago. And I told him that I thought technology was the Antichrist, right? And we started talking about that. And he goes, maybe we owe Ted Kaczynski an apology. And ever since that, because I had never really said that out loud, I told Charlie said it, and then I piggybacked on that idea, but I had seen a documentary on a Unabomber a few years ago on Netflix, and I just recently went back to watch. I didn't get past the first 30 minutes because I had something to do, but he wasn't too far off. Okay, he did some really extreme shit that I don't condone, but he wasn't far off at all when it came to technology and when it came to where we are now as a people. Reading or listening to some of what he read and what he said, you're like, damn, like, is he wrong here? Like, maybe his ultimate conclusions and what he did was wrong, and not maybe, it was.
Right.
But the original philosophy. I subscribe to it. I'm not willing to go live in a cabin somewhere, but that's what you kind of have to do.
Yeah.
In order to maybe become a philosopher, but definitely to achieve some type of privacy. Right? Because now we know there's no reasonable expectation of privacy, period. Anyway. So he was absolutely right. So I would recommend go check out Ted Kaczynski, guys. Don't do what he did, but go listen to some of what he said, and it'll ring true to some of you.
He was a victim of MK Ultra.
Yeah.
While at Harvard, and I often wonder how much of what he did after was a result of that, and how much did they know? How much were they trying to stop him? Maybe he was the guy that says, "Look," maybe he was the one that was going to write the book or make it into a digestible philosophy to people to understand. We need to pull back a little bit on what we're doing. Like, we're advancing so fast without the wisdom. Like, we don't have the ethics.
Right.
Maybe they were just like, yeah, just neutralize this guy, make him a nut. You know,
Wow.
Totally possible.
Absolutely.
Don't make him
100%.
a martyr, make him detested.
Right.
Yeah, totally possible. I like that theory.
Yeah.
Maybe you got to write. That's your next. You got to write a book on that theory, Tony.
That'd be dope.
I've got a few theories. I mean, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm happy to be one. That's a proud moniker. You know, imagine how pedestrian and unimaginative, like, to just believe that everything's an accident. Like, like, what's wrong with
dude? I do believe, like, this truth community or whatever. Like, this is the last, like, real thinkers of the modern age, because nobody else. What do the other people obsess about? Who's the fastest or best sports player, or maybe TV shows or celebrities or whatever. And this is like the only group that you can discuss ideas, well, with the right people, but you can challenge ideas. You can, and that's something to be proud of in this, especially in this day and age. But
it's my people.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, we certainly try.
Well, so guys, this was an awesome show. I'm so thankful you could do it. So Tony, where can people find you, listen to you, all those good things?
Well, my website is my last name.news. Arterburn.news is my website. You can pretty much find anything, links to me there. I have a radio show a couple of times a week called the Arterburn Radio Transmission. We send that out on terrestrial radio and shortwave on WWCR. But you can find that anywhere podcasts are found. I think we're on episode 408, something like that. And then I've got a podcast called Paratruther, because I was a paratrooper, but now I'm a paratruther. And
I love it. That's
one of the things I'm really proud of is America Unplugged, and that's with Billy Ray Valentine and Don Jeffries on Saturdays on Rockfin. And that podcast, I think we're episode 46 coming up on America Unplugged. So love doing that show.
Love it. And Billy, where can the people see your beautiful mug?
Oh man, if you want to see my beautiful mug, just let me know. I'll send pictures. Drop them in your DMs. I take requests. Anyway, the Infinite Fringe.podbeam.com, the Infinite Fringe on Apple Podcasts. Go check it. I'm dropping an episode on Q. The return of QAnon. It was John Brissom, Neil Sanders, George from cavdev.org. And I'm missing a few. I don't know who else was on, but there were other people on that I just don't remember. So we're going to drop that tonight. So look for it tomorrow. And of course, theinfinitefringe@gmail.com. You want to send me an email and tell me how wrong I was about something. I'm always willing to listen. And America Unplugged with Tony and Don Jeffries on Rockfin live at 12 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. But also, if you can't catch us live, go subscribe to the podcast, AmericaUnplugged.com, AmericaUnpluggedRadio.com. We'll take you to the same place, and you can subscribe anywhere you find the finest of podcasts, ladies and gents. That's it. That's all I got. Billy the Kid. Thank you, buddy.
Guys, thanks for listening, everybody in the chat. It was a lot of fun, and we'll talk soon, my friends. Peace.